Hi, I'm Hafiz, and this is We Are Dads Too, a podcast for fathers by fathers. Each week, we will have conversations about different aspects of fathering. We'll also be speaking with experts to get their opinions. And today, my co-host Parkson and I have a guest who is Dr. Zainal Muttakin. Dr. Zainal is a pediatrician. And Dr. Zainal, how are you this morning?
Good. Good morning, Hafiz and Parkson.
Good
Good to have
morning.
you. Okay, we would like you to introduce yourself because I think you have a long CV, being in this line for so long. And
You're not applying for a job, so you don't have to share with us your resume.
all right, tell us about yourself, Dr.
All
Zainal.
right. First of all, thanks for inviting me to speak on this podcast. My name is Zainal. I'm married with 4 children. I have been in this line of medicine for almost 25 years, and I'm currently practicing in the community as a community pediatrician.
Okay.
What does a community pediatrician do?
Right. Community pediatrician basically sees children in the outpatient setting. We based ourselves in the community neighborhood. Myself, I'm practice is in near Hougang, as opposed to pediatrician who practice from the private hospitals. So they do see a lot of newborn babies. For me, I see a wide range of children from newborns to children up to the age of 16. And I provide services largely based in the community. So I manage conditions which basically as an outpatient. So if I do need to admit them, then I would refer to the hospital-based pediatrician or to the KK hospital or NUH for further management.
I see. Okay,
Yeah.
so you are coming closer to the people where the people are, rather than just waiting for people to come to you. In that sense, in a way, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm
So
also
when
more
you
accessible in that sense, because I'm based in the community. So it's basically a walking distance from many of my patients who live nearby. So it is a convenience that I offer them as opposed to
Wonderful.
a hospital-based pediatrician for which they have to travel quite a
Wonderful.
fair bit.
Yeah, I wish that was such a thing during my time, because my wife and I, had to travel quite a distance to get to the hospital to see our pediatrician once in a while. Well, in your line of work, I'm sure you do see fathers and mothers, expecting mothers and fathers to come to you, to do their regular checkups and all that kind of thing. Do you see a trend that fathers are more and more involved in the pregnancy stage, and getting more interested and involved with their with the pregnancy of their wife?
As far as my practice is concerned, yes, I do see greater involvement of fathers in particular in the care of their newborn babies, as well as in the follow-up years as the child grows up. So we see them coming together with their mothers to bring in their newborn babies, and sometimes their fathers alone coming to consult with their children. And they show genuine concern and really involved in the minding and as well as the care of the child whenever they are sick.
Okay. And when they come to you, I'm sure they do have some questions to ask you. So what do you find that are the kind of things new fathers want to know, or they're saying, please tell me what to do? What kind of questions do you get?
Right. Just like moms, dads are also equally curious and wants to know what's going on with their newborn baby. So common questions like, how much sleep does the baby need to have? Am I feeding the baby enough? Okay. And how's is my baby's behavior is normal or not? So there's a lot of uncertainty and queries with regards to, especially in the early days or months of the newborn baby, when they are still trying to get the hang of things, trying to become new parents to a newborn baby. And as they get to know the baby, that's where they have lots of questions to ask.
See, yeah, go ahead, Hafiz.
Yeah, so Dr. Zainal,
Yes.
it's our fathers, when they are involved, right? Is it very crucial to the development of the baby? I think that's one question that I want to ask, because maybe some fathers may assume that bringing up children or even infants are the work of mothers and they are better at nurturing. What do you think?
Oh, definitely, Hafiz. So it is a role of two parents, not just one parent. And I think the involvement of fathers should even begin prior to pregnancy and through the pregnancy of the mom, as well as after the baby is born, because ultimately both parents need to be involved in the holistic upbringing of the child. So in terms of prior to conceiving, for example, okay, parents and mothers, prospective mothers and fathers should be discussing about, about birthing, birth plans, for example, or who to see in the first place. Which obstetrician would you both be comfortable with about seeing, and taking care of the mother during their pregnancy, attending antenatal classes, and of course the birth plans. What between the two of you would decide what kind of birth plans would you have to be discussed with your obstetrician. These are important and crucial questions that need to be discussed prior to the event, and thereafter when the child is born, then what role or does father wants to be involved in upon the child being given birth to, so should the father be there during the delivery, and thereafter how long should the father be taking paternity leave, to support the mothers, and in terms of deciding whether to breastfeed or not to breastfeed is also a conjoint decision between mothers and fathers to decide. And whatever decision they make, it must be a collaborative effort by both parents, not just one parent as the mother. And I think increasingly as well, I think I see a lot of fathers in particular are getting more involved in the care of the child right from the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very encouraging. As as coming from Center for Fathering, that's really encouraging. We do have a workshop for expecting couples to help them prepare for this stage, and we help them to strengthen their marriage, because marriage does take a toll when the baby arrives. There's a lot of changes in their lives, sleeping patterns, and communication is important, and conflicts will arise because everyone is just stressed out and tired, lacking sleep, and just confused. Yeah. So what do you advise? I mean, paternity leave is has actually improved from my time and maybe half his time and all our time, where there were just 2 days to today they have 2 weeks. What were you hearing from these new fathers, whether they are taking that paternity leave or not?
Again, from my perspective, most of these fathers who came to see me, they will be coming to see me within the first few weeks of life or the first month, and most times they come together. So they may be coming during the daytime and nighttime. So I presume they would be available for the baby. So I do not directly question them and getting feedback from them whether they're on paternity leave. But nowadays, most parents will be working from home. So whether they like it or not, both parents will be involved in the care of the child. So I presume they are involved. Yeah.
So that's a
So
blessing in disguise, huh? Working from home.
that's right. So you're right. So in a way, fathers are much aware of what's happening with the baby at home, as opposed to when they're working from the office, they have no idea until they come back from work to find out what's going on. So as they work from home, they also have to deal with the background crying, attention that needs to be provided for the baby, as well as the regular things that, change of diapers, milk feeding, etc. So they will be directly involved, hopefully in a way that they want to, rather than they are forced to.
Well, what do you say is the most effective way, or different ways that a father can bond with a newborn, in the early stages?
Right. I think to be there for both the mom and the baby. So I think for it's crucial, I think, for husbands and fathers to be at the bedside of the mom when the baby is born. And I think the first bonding has always been emphasized between mother and child, between skin to skin bonding. But I think the fathers need to be involved as well. speaking from personal experience, I personally was there for all my 4 kids' deliveries, and I was there with my wife throughout the entire hospital stay. So I think I observe as well a lot of fathers would be taking leave during delivery time and being there for for both their wives as well as their newborn babies as well. And I think that's the starting point at the very least, for fathers to know their baby, to be there, and to provide support whenever they can for the mom and the baby whenever should they decide to breastfeed, for example. Because I think fathers sometimes tend to feel isolated when mothers decide to breastfeed the baby, and then they feel that the opportunity for bonding as well as to be involved in the care of the baby seems to be minimized. So I normally approach breastfeeding as a joint decision making. So they need to decide whether or not they want to breastfeed the baby. So and it needs to be a mutual decision, because should the mother decide, then father should play that role as well to support both. And because breastfeeding is a very challenging responsibility, and it should not be just a responsibility of the mother, it should also be a responsibility for the father as well. So they need to be looking at ways where they can support mothers to achieve that aim. So for example, I can say that if the mother is tired, from breastfeeding, for example, and they want to take a break, then the father should be there to support the mom to rest, because resting during breastfeeding is very hard to find. Yeah, so whenever they are periods or their mom can rest, father should step in and then provide the care that the baby needs, so that the mom is given some quality time to rest, and in particular at night, for example. So some fathers actually would volunteer to provide feeding in the form of express breast milk, for example. So the nighttime, the mom would rest, and there'll be some express milk supply that the father would then feed the baby when the baby cries for milk in the night, to allow the mom to rest, for example. So this is one way where dad can provide support as well. So, but the other ways where fathers can support the mom, not just in terms of physical rest, you can also provide some emotional support as well, trying to be the understanding partner that you can, to offer a listening ear. And also in terms of, I think it does help if you can provide some good physical massage for your wives as well. So they have gone through really painful labor, and then recovery period. Sometimes some of them will have to go to cesarean section, so they need a period of rest. So some fathers can step up, and provide a good massage for their wives, as well as, some form of entertainment whenever you can. Yeah, to lift up the mood, and so that the environment at home is less stressful.
Yeah, talking about anxiety and stress, I think if new fathers or even parents know that all this actually will affect the development of the baby, right? I mean, if you are stressful, you'll be mentally affected, even physically affected, and the baby can feel it. So the importance of support, not only from the husband or the father, but also from the others. So what do you see out there, the other kind of support that parents, new parents have and can get? And I mean, comparing to our time in the past and now, what are the differences also?
All right. There are still some semblance of support that we had in the past. Some families do still stay in a multi-generational family, and they do have support from the grandparents. And I think they are a huge asset as well. And both grandfather and grandmoms are also directly involved in the care of the babies. They do provide a good amount of support in terms of taking care of the mother, as well as taking care of the newborn baby. They are also support in the form of confinement ladies as well. So now that during the pandemic and with the major lockdown across the causeway as well, so getting confinement lady may be a bit difficult for some families as well, and they are sometimes struggling. So having confinement lady do take the burden off a bit of newborn, of what do you call it, new parents in taking care of the child. And there is still some families who engage the use of massage ladies, and I think they are useful as well. They are very therapeutic in the sense that it provides some relief for the mother in their recuperation period to allow them to re-energize as well as to recover from their labor and their pregnancy as well. So these are some of the things that we still see right now. In terms of father support, so maybe Parkson can talk a bit about how you can provide we can provide support for fathers. For my part, in terms of pediatrician, I do listen. So I think part of my role as a community pediatrician is to listen to their anxiety, to their questions, and to the problems that they have. So I do spend a fair bit of time trying to understand the situation they are in, because every set of parent and child is quite unique. I wouldn't assume that they're all the same. So I would have to kind of listen to them and find out where I can provide an alternative point of view and provide some support where they are in need of.
Yeah, feel free to direct them to us at Center for Fathering, because we do have fathering coaches that can help them, and especially those who have kind of a few steps ahead of them. For me, my memory is not so fresh because my youngest is 16 already, so it was 16 years ago, and I became another a dad all over again. But we do have volunteers who are fathers, with younger kids, and so their memories might be fresher and more contemporary and up to date. So yeah, please feel free to direct them, send them our way. We will be happy to help them.
But Pakson, you are a new grandfather, right? So do you play a role?
Grandfather is different. Grandfather, we are not. We have all the privileges, but not the responsibility.
Yeah, after the baby is clean, smell nice, and you pass to the grandfather. Other than that, don't.
Yeah, we don't have the responsibility.
Yeah, Dr. Zainal, because
Yes.
I know that when I was a father myself, right, one of the concern that I had was the cost of going to a good pediatrician, and having to spend more money compared to the normal GP, or just sent to the polyclinic or the government hospitals. So what is your or what do you see any improvements either in the system or in the attitudes of parents out there in terms of giving the best to their children by going to the I think for yourself, you are a very qualified pediatrician. Your rates are different from the others. How do you advise parents or fathers to choose and manage their finances when it comes to such issues?
Right, that's a tough question to answer, Hafiz. So I think from the public policy point of view, I'm not in a position to say that, but what I'm aware on the ground is that there is a emphasis towards primary healthcare. So there is a systematic conscious effort on the part of the ministry to to improve the quality of care that's provided by primary healthcare physician, that is doctors in the family care setting as well in the polyclinics, to be able to provide basic but good quality primary healthcare for newborn babies as well as young children. So, but that is still a work in progress. So, and of course, when it comes from the public health sector, most of it is subsidized, if not free, from citizens and permanent residents. So the decision is really left to the parents to decide, because they can tell and differentiate the kind of care that they can get from different healthcare providers. So I will leave to them. So they need, of course, to think about the cost-benefit ratio in terms of seeking a pediatrician's services as opposed to a non-pediatrician services as well. So they have to figure out on their own in terms of what is worth their money and time to spend on their children. So the first contact for parents was usually in a hospital. So in a hospital, they would be seen by neonatologists or pediatrician, which are specialists, and they would be offered advice accordingly. But it's a very short contact in terms of at the newborn period, and subsequent visits is where most parents would require to further understand their child's well-being and to become better parents in taking care of their children. So for this first year of life for their firstborn or their children, they need to build up a rapport with whom they can trust with, be it a primary care physician or a pediatrician of their choice. Yeah. So and that's where I suppose community peds is important, because we are right in the heartland and we provide care, accessible care where they need, because sometimes they might need consult right in the evening, for example, like after 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. And some of the community pits operating in the heartlands do open, and they find it a lot more convenient and accessible to seek consultation with us, as opposed to making a trip down to the emergency or to the private hospitals where most of them would be closed by after 5, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that trust is a very important thing, because for my wife and I, all our 3 kids, we never had a pediatrician. We had a gynae, and who finally delivered our babies, and immediately after that we would refer, in a sense, we would consult our family doctor, who was in our neighborhood, and it was a family clinic, and even until today, for more severe cases, severe in a sense, when we needed a second opinion, because we have moved away from that neighborhood, but still in the whole, same region. So, we always go back to them, because they have all our 3 kids' medical history. Yeah. So yeah, I think what parents need to know is, while pediatricians definitely offer them, a specialized expert opinion, in some cases, family doctors, GPs, for example, can do the job. I guess you need to know them well. You need to know their experience as well, and you need to have a good enough sense of that their track record, so to speak. If you have been going to them for some time yourself, and now you have a baby, I guess you can trust them, I think. And yeah, there's always a possibility of seeking second opinion. That's my point of view.
Yeah, I concur with you, Pakson, because there are quite a number of very good family physicians that provide holistic care from newborn to even to the elderly. And I think it's just a matter of trying to know them and develop a rapport and trust with their own family physician or primary care physician. And there's still a role for a pediatrician, but whenever there's a doubt, and like you say, a second opinion, they would sometimes refer back to me, and we work as a team in a way, because we would then feedback, what is the underlying problem that the child may have, and most of the time it's just they need a bit of reassurance when it comes to questionable issues in a developing newborn baby, where there's create a lot of queries and anxiety among parents.
I want to kind of go to a different topic right now, and that is about special needs. Because special needs is something, in Singapore, a spotlight is now being shone on that area, about children with special needs and all that. What's the earliest that a parent can begin to detect, or even doctors and pediatricians can begin to detect that the child might have, one of those conditions and be classified as a child with special needs?
Right, the special needs definition is quite broad, so it depends on whether it is special needs in terms of a physical disability or physical impairment, or is it a developmental issue with regards to cognitive function or mental capacity. So I think the emphasis.
I think for physical deformities or impairment, one thing I remember very clearly about all the 3 deliveries of my kids is, the moment that the baby is born, and the doctor cuts the umbilical cord, a nurse comes around, wraps the newborn with a towel, and goes to a side, and then I presume begins to clean up the baby. And then that nurse will kind of announce 10 fingers, 10 toes. I don't know if it's still done today, but I remember that for all three of my baby, So I guess it's their initial way of assuring the parents, okay, as far as I can see, your baby looks normal. All right. And then later on, I guess the developmental stages, right? Whether the baby is able to roll over, start to crawl, and start to walk. And then, some parents will notice, hey, by now my child should be doing it, but he's not. What's happening? So they start to panic. But then the more not so obvious ones, I guess, are the maybe the something to do with the brain or mental, and things like that. Yeah. So what are you noticing in terms of these incidences, and whether it's increasing, whether it's an uptake or what?
All right. So first of all, there is a health booklet that every parent is issued whenever the child is born in the hospital. And in this health booklet, they would chart the different expected milestones they need to achieve by a certain age. And this is one of the resources that first-time parents need to use in order for them to know where the child is charting in terms of their developmental milestones. And that, I think, is a useful guide that most parents may not be aware yet in terms of its utility. So that's one. So if you look at every stage of their development from 1 to 2 months, and then thereafter from 3 to 6 months, and from 6 to 12 months, there are different stages of milestones that they need to achieve. And this milestone would cover in terms of their motor milestones, fine motor skills, in terms of their social development, in terms of their cognitive function. Those are they would assess on different aspects of their developmental milestones. And it is something that parents need to be aware of. That's one. Two is that whenever they come for a developmental visit to the doctors, either to the primary care physician in the polyclinics or to the pediatrician, they would normally do a developmental check as well. Yeah, so these are also checkpoints where we are trained to pick up if there's any signs of or red flags that we should be worried about in terms of their milestones, to pick up problems that we can anticipate. So these are the children may have with special needs, for example, may not show early signs as early as first month of life, for example. So even though they are born well and physically normal, and they may show a normal milestone in the first 6 months, it doesn't guarantee you that problems may arise later on. So that's where we always have to be vigilant and be very aware of the red flags, whereby where there is any indication, we need to follow that more strictly. And then if there is a need to, then we may have to refer them further to for further assessment and diagnosis. Yeah, so that they are increasingly more cases, I would say, but I don't have the statistics as to what numbers are we seeing. And it may be attributed to because there's greater awareness of conditions such as autism spectrum disorders, ADHD, and because of the greater awareness as well among parents, among doctors, as well among educational professionals, because they can also be picked up by teachers as well as childcare educators. So on the ground, there are a lot of people who are already trained to pick up all these things. So increasingly, we are seeing more and more, and partly because there's greater awareness, and there's also greater skills in picking them up and referring them early.
I think personal conscious is very important to me, because most of these developmental or even mental condition may not be physically seen or easily seen. So it's important for parents to be aware, right? And to look out for telltale signs. So probably you can share with us some tips that parents can help parents, especially not in terms of just intervening, but preventive. What kind of relationship, or what kind of communication style, or what kind of habits that you would advise parents or fathers to have with their young ones, right, or babies, such that such a condition would be mitigated if it can be prevented.
Okay, I think first of all, I think most of these special needs condition, they are not preventable. And I think I need to put it across because a lot of parents, when they come to see us and we have to break the bad news to them, they always have this feeling of guilt. Yeah, they say, what did I do wrong during my pregnancy? Is it because of what I ate? Is it something happened during during my pregnancy? That makes them going on a guilt trip. So and that is an obstacle to coming to terms with the diagnosis and trying to provide or offer help to the child, because when parents goes through a guilt trip, it find it harder for them to accept the diagnosis, and oftentimes they may be in denial. And when that happens, accepting is difficult and moving forward is even harder. So, and getting help for the child will be delayed. So that's why I want to dispel the notion that these kids with special needs or developmental problems is due to any particular cause, because oftentimes there's no known cause. It can be multifactorial, but there's no single cause that we can pinpoint to say that, oh, this is the problem and you should have avoided. So I think that needs to be dispelled. In terms of general developmental milestones, I mean, of course, some children may have mild delays and they may not be tantamount to an actual special need condition. So, and that's where certain habits may be useful in terms of special in terms of in the first, say, 6 months of the newborn's life, for example, establishing routines is essential. So and understanding the child. So and when parents do not know how to go forward in terms of providing good support for the child's developmental needs, they can give rise to problems. For example, one simple example, for example, is like sleep. Sleep is so essential, but parents may not have a established routine of how to put the baby to sleep or put to bed, and partly because of their work arrangement, for example, right? So both parents work, come back late, and then they have to rush the child's needs, and they end up delaying their bedtime. And sometimes they decide to go out for dinner, for example, and then bring the baby out, and again they come back late, and then the bedtime is delayed. So it becomes what do you call it, a rollover effect, meaning that if the child doesn't have a regular bedtime, they have trouble initiating sleep, they have poor quality sleep, they get very cranky the next day, and the parents get stressed. Yeah. So so establishing routine is essential, just to prevent problems that can sometimes snowball, yeah, from one to another. So that's just one example that I can give you.
Yeah, I think that you said it correctly. I think sleep is also important. My son was diagnosed with dyslexia, not a very severe one, but he was kind of 1.5 years behind his peers, as well as ADHD. And the specialist wanted to put him on medication, and I said no way, because once you start, you can never stop. So today he seems to be quite normal. In fact, for example, the dyslexia, when he entered puberty, it seemed to have more or less disappeared. All right. Yeah. So that made me kind of very interested in these areas about special needs, and so one of the things I've learned is that in the first 5 years of a child's life, it's a very crucial time because the brain is developing, and it's a window of opportunity for parents and whoever cares for the child to do certain things, the right things, and very effective things to help the child develop the brain in the right way. In particular, this area called executive functions, and I've listened to a number of seminars on ADHD, for example, and what these experts seems to imply is that ADHD might not be genetic, it's due to DNA, but it can also be the way the child is brought up, and particularly the executive functions, whether the executive functions was well trained in the early years. If it wasn't well trained, then later on in the maybe a later part of childhood, the child may exhibit some of those behaviors that are very similar to someone who is diagnosed with ADHD, and so the that executive function, which is most related to ADHD, I guess, is impulse control and the ability to delay gratification. And so as a result of that, I actually developed a workshop on that. It's called Training the Young Brain. Is to share with parents, about this thing called executive function, which I realize many parents do not even know what it is and how important it is, and to share them with simple activities like play, some games and some songs and some action songs, that will help the child train up certain parts of their executive functions, so that it may not prevent any of those disorders like autism or any other disorders, but at least it will set them on the right path and a good foundation for future development in life.
If I might just comment a bit about what you said, because at the moment the science behind ADHD and ASD is still not really well established yet. I mean, it is related to the brain circuitry issues. It is a brain problem, but there are certain aspects of ADHD or autism uh, which may be considered mild and may be exhibited in normal children. So we won't be in such a rush to label children with certain aspects of hyperactivity or short attention span as ADHD, because it is a certain criteria that needs to be satisfied before we label them as ADHD. And a lot of times, parents in the preschool ages between 3 to 5, for example, always complain that my child is very, very hyperactive, cannot keep still. And the teachers as well would complain about the same things as well. But oftentimes this hyperactivity do outgrow, because naturally children do have a short attention span, boys certainly more than girls. And oftentimes a matter of observation and a bit of coaching can actually mitigate some of the symptoms, but they are not tantamount to ADHD. So ADHD is specific in its diagnosis, and we normally label them at the very least at about age of 5 to 6 years of age. And they need to be subject to a battery of tests and assessment and observations before we label them as such. So we will not jump the gun and label every hyperactive child as ADHD, because a lot of times they may be a transient phenomena where they can get better as they get older. But I do agree with you about executive function as well. So there is a role in terms of helping children develop executive function even at the very early age. So that's where parenting is important in terms of your parenting styles. So when parents give a free rein, kind of a permissive kind of pattern of parenting, children do not develop good executive function and become decision making. So, for example, some children are very, very assertive in what they want, but at the same time, they are also not very sure of what they want. So if they are given a free reign of deciding what they want to wear, for example, to school, they not be the best way to help them achieve that executive function. We need to limit two choices, either this or that. It actually encourages them to become better decision making, more effective decision making. When we as parents give them, okay, what do you want to wear? That's not helping them, because they are still at the age where they are still quite immature in the sense of making a decision making, and they may not have the right tools to make the right one. So to help them, we need to limit their choice to two, not an open-ended question, and let them decide a whole wardrobe of what to wear. Yeah, and at the same time, on the flip side, some children are very fixated on one particular thing. Yeah, so they just one color, pink, 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 and nothing else. So as parents, we need to open the doors to other opportunities and other options as well, and to encourage them to be open-minded about other options, not just a singular-minded kind of single train of thought. And it does help in making them deciding better, making them a bit more open-minded.
Well, I think as we go along, more issues and more topics that we can talk about. I think for today, we have spoken a lot on what fathers and parents can do in helping themselves while they are with children, growing up children and young children. And we hope that we can call you again for not as a pediatrician, but as a father yourself one day, and talk about your experience for raising your own children, and what we can do to and how we can learn from there. Because I personally know Dr. Zainal for some time, and he's not only very good academically. Well, I mean, he scored straight A's as a student,
Ah,
but I think but I think his children are all very well brought up and performing very well in school. And I mean, I also know that not everything is roses. Everyone has their issues. I mean, before children, a bit developmental. Sometimes they have illness, and I think these are the things that you would want to learn from you. I think you have to growing up some challenges because one of your child I know went through some illness, and maybe we want to also learn how you overcome that, how the experience was like, and be able to overcome as a parent. One day, we hope you can share. Okay, so for today, I think that's great. Paksan, do you have any other questions before we end today?
No. Thank
All
you,
right.
Dr. Zainal, for answering the questions and for sharing your expert opinion on the different topics. And thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning and being able to kind of enlighten us with many, many things. Thank you for your
thank you
time.
for having
All
me.
the
Thanks,
best to you.
thanks, all of you. Yeah, thank
Thank you,
you.
Dr. Zainal.
Bye.
Have a nice day.
Bye.